I want to welcome everybody. Good evening, everybody, and it's great to have you all here in honor of this gentleman who has earned this honor, but more about that later. Right now, I'd like to bring up a brother who taught here from 1970 through 72. And currently he's at St. Mary's College, so he never gets out of that St. Mary's circle from the high school to the college, and he's been there in quite a wonderful force, knows where all the bones are buried, so I'm not going to get too sassy with him. To give the invocation, Brother Thomas Jones. Welcome, Brother Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. Isn't this a wonderful celebration that we're having tonight? So we will begin as we always do. Let us remember. Loving God, your presence brings us to life and casts an unmerited but welcome blessing on this celebration of service and belonging. This evening we celebrate brotherhood in its multiple dimensions. We celebrate family. We celebrate coming together that we may share the fullness of life as God has promised it to us. As food and drink, laughter and conversation, intervals of reverence and silence enter and exit this room, we bow our heads in expressions of respect for you and one another, and in gratitude for the dreams of our parents and teachers that anchor us in this moment. We place before you Larry's life as a visible sign, a sacrament of loving service, and we ask that your blessing may flow through us to him and to this meal we share. And we ask all of this in your name. Amen. Amen. St. John Baptist de La Salle. Live Jesus in our hearts.
Forever. Well, right now we'll wait for dinner instructions, but we'll get to the bit of the program after you eat the main course and before dessert or during dessert or something like that. I need Audrey D. or Brother Jonathan up here to give us instructions. Who goes first? Miss D? This is part you didn't tell me. And you better get up here because ad-libbing, you might not like it. Brother Jonathan? Yes. Would you? We're waiting for instructions from you. Mark? You always be sorry for that.
Are you ready to dismiss for dinner?
No, I'm not doing that. You are.
This is brand new to me. All right, let's do this.
Why do you want to do this?
Are you dismissing?
Isn't this exciting? All that food's getting cold.
Okay. We are going to start with table number 2. You may help yourself to the buffet.
What happened to table number 1?
Well, are you doing this?
No, you are. You heard what she said, 2. Let's go.
Our guest of honor is at table number 2, so we're going to go with table number 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to report that Audrey D. said I could start. And Brother Jonathan said okay too. If Audrey D. said, where is she? Audrey D., where are you? I'm going to go now, right? Okay. Thank you. Well, again, welcome everybody to this wonderful celebration in honor of Lawrence Puck, Brother Lawrence. There are other affiliated members in this audience tonight, and I would like to call on them to stand and be recognized. AFCs, Tom Brady, Gery Short, Ted Sukahara, and Janelle Kloosterman. Janelle. Don't let that leather jacket fool you. There is no motorcycle. Is your motorcycle outside? Janelle, you have no lines. But the next round coming up, our two future AFSCs are right in here. I'd love them to stand and be recognized. Greg Copra and Janet Ruggiero. Well, I don't want to drag this on too long, but I will. Lawrence. Larry, Lawrence, Puck, Mr. Puck. Now it's Brother Lawrence. How wonderful. Isn't this lovely? This is a lovely thing, and at last you can get a burial plot at Mont LaSalle. But that's not the only perk. There are other perks about being a brother. You've observed it enough over the years, and there are those in this room, whether they're willing to admit it or not, we all know that it's true, you see. So now, when you go into the pantry and get a cookie, you can leave the last one in the container and hope that somebody else will take it out. However, cleaning the lint filter in the dryer, you still got to do that. But it's great to be able to honor you this way, and there are others here who want to speak to and about you, and I think it's honorable. The first speaker we have, AFSC, this gentleman asked me to do, I'm going to tell the story, Tom. This gentleman asked me to do this job when I was here the first time, I think it was about 1992, something like that. And he said, now, I want you to go, there's a little office where Brother Daniel has his area in the back of St. Joseph, because I would take phone messages for Colbert and for others in the school. He said, but I would always use those while you were out, little slips, and write it down, then put the card. He said, no, I want you to use a computer. So he had a computer put in that office. Well, I never wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how to operate it or anything. It was on when it was set there. So all I would do, I'd take phone calls and watch Little Mermaid screensavers, and it would play that calypso music, and I'd write little notes, and I'd still put them in the mailbox. You were very kind. You didn't kill me, and I'm very grateful. So. But right now, a man who served in many capacities in this school, including attending here as a student, it's great to have this wonderful alum, this former president, and a man who knows Brother Lawrence so well. I'm happy to introduce Mr. Tom Brady. Tom.
Are these your notes, Kenneth?
That's all right. Yeah.
So. Well, here we are. Well, here we are for this long-awaited day. What's in a name? It all depends upon the eye and ear of the beholder. Juliet, in her famous soliloquy in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, implied that what matters was not her lover's family name, but who he really was in her life, when she declared, "What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. When Jesus in Matthew's gospel pointedly asked Peter the deeper question, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." This afternoon at Mass, the Institute of the Brothers of the Christian Schools named and honored Lawrence C. Puck, an affiliated member of the Brothers of the Christian Schools. Together they told him, "In our eyes, our minds, and our hearts, we know you, we love you, we honor you as our brother." We here tonight applaud the brothers for naming the heart, the essence of who Lawrence Puck really is, and included him in their communal brotherhood. This quote, taken from an earlier Affiliation citation, clearly applies to Lawrence Puck's life commitment to the brothers and the work of LaSallian education. The bestowal of a diploma of affiliation is indicative of the esteem the Christian brothers hold for the person of insight, integrity, inspiration, and indefatigable commitment to LaSallian ideals. I have known Lawrence for nearly 50 years. In late summer 1974, he enrolled here on this campus as a freshman. Lawrence and his small circle of friends came from different racial, ethnic, and social class backgrounds. Street smart. They were keen observers of the school's social scene and deeply knowledgeable of the cultural idioms of the age, the lingo, the pop art, the movies, and the politics, and the music that allowed them to engage with nearly every individual on campus. They got along well with everybody. They assisted teachers in their classes and labs, helped them set up student center and gym for mass assemblies and rallies, and actively participated in student activities. I remember Lawrence being selected in his freshman year to participate in the architectural workshops that led to the creation of the campus master plan and the erection of this very building, the Brother Aloysius Shea Student Center. Graduating in June 1978, Lawrence began his formal collegiate education at the University of San Francisco. Early in his freshman year at USF, he began spending his free time back at his old Peralta Park haunts, quickly emerging as a teaching assistant in the biology lab under mentorship of Brother Nicholas Bealey, Rich Trusendi, and Colbert Davis. The range of his generosity touched every area of campus life. He became the go-to substitute teacher. Upon graduation from USF in the early 80s, St. Mary's hired him as a full-time teacher. From the mid-80s until I left St. Mary's in the summer of 1995 to join the District of San Francisco leadership team, Lawrence grew in stature and wisdom. Mentored by various administrators and faculty members, he was given important roles in the life of the school. His uncanny ability of listening to students and seeing issues from the perspective of the student before any decisions created a strong climate of trust between him and his students. He played a leading role in faculty and student discussions that led to the transition to coeducation. When coeducation era began in fall 1995, he had more presence, visibility, and institutional knowledge than any brother, lay administrator, or faculty member in the school. He humbly carried himself as a servant leader, wanting no glory or special recognition for himself. During Brother Edmond LaRouche's historic 20-plus year presidency, Lawrence was his trusted advisor and constant supporter. Almost most importantly, from the time that he arrived on campus as a student, he slowly became aware of the special presence of God in his life. He felt inspired to use his gifts and talents in an educational ministry that is both Catholic and LaSallian. On a practical note, throughout his years at St. Mary's, Lawrence always made great efforts to carry out De La Salle's admonition, "Take care that your school runs well." In the mid-'80s, Lawrence was invited to live in the Brothers community. There, Lawrence immersed himself in his prayer and liturgical life, joyfully participated in daily activities, shared in its chores, and prepared meals and extended hospitality to guests and frequent visitors. As president, despite his death-defying accident, he focused on achieving the primary goals of his office: unifying the school community around the 5 core LaSallian principles, reaching out to parents, alumni, friends, and foundations to fund additional facilities, endowment, and financial aid, and representing the school within the district, the Diocese of Oakland, and the public. In his nearly 50 years of association with the De La Salle Christian Brothers and St. Mary's College High School, Lawrence experienced the worst of times and the best of times, and gave the full measure of his talents and heart to see that her students received a good education and that their lives were inspired by the gospel and LaSallian principles. Well, Mr. Puck, what's in a name? We know Shakespeare birthed Puck, the character in A Midsummer Night's Dream, as a marvelous fairy or jester. Perhaps, Lawrence, we now know the source of your Disney gene. Today, the brothers honored you not for your name, but for a nearly half-century of devotion and commitment to the life and work of the black-robed brothers of De La Salle. We in this room tonight heartily agree and joyfully applaud.
Tom, thank you very much. You know, it's one thing to know things about somebody, but then when you actually hear them listed, as we just did with you, it's amazing. Aren't you glad I gave you that Shakespeare reference? I don't know. Tom one time for Christmas offered to get me a present, and I said, no, Tom, don't get me a present. He said, I'd like to get you a book. I said, no, I already have one. Our next speaker's name is hopefully like his speech, a short. I couldn't resist it. And Gery leaves no stone unturned. In fact, he told me exactly what I'm supposed to say about him. Ready? You'll be sorry. Now, here's what he wrote. At least this is what you said you would do. Okay. Gery has known, I'm acting like I'm doing this on my own. Gery has known Larry for over 40 years. Is that true? He first met Larry when Gery, I wish you had different names. Larry first met Gery When Gery was a teacher here and Larry worked in the maintenance department, did you do that, really? How come you didn't mention that? That's the only thing you missed. After his time at St. Mary's, Gery worked for the District of San Francisco, New Orleans, in the Office of Education, and worked with Larry, especially when Larry served as Director of Student Activities for 10 years, Director of Admissions for 22 years. Gery now serves as a member of the St. Mary's Board of Trustees and has worked closely with Larry as the president for the past 5. And now, I'm happy to present Mr. Gery Short. Gery.
That's the last time I'm sending him anything. So I'm responsible for picking up where Tom left off. It's a real honor for me to speak today because I've been a friend, a colleague, and a fan of Larry for 40-some years. I want to begin, though, by sharing some comments about Larry I gathered recently from a few of his closest colleagues here at St. Mary's. I was reminded by Brother Edmund what affiliation means, and he said it's really twofold. Affiliation points to the person's significant relationship with the brothers. The brothers are claiming, Larry, that you are one of their own. And second, affiliation recognizes the profound extent, Larry, that you embrace and express the LaSallian mission. So as I read these comments from his colleagues, and I'll make my own comments later, I'd like you to filter it through this definition of affiliation, being one of your own as a brother and your expression of the LaSallian mission. I quote, "He has lived like one of us in the brothers community as a full participant for over 20 years. He has participated in daily prayers, meals, took his turns to cook, led discussion, and welcomed visitors. And as it's already been said, many of these visitors assumed that Larry was a brother. The LaSallian mission is in every part of him. It is in the fabric of his being. Larry is truly an extraordinary teacher about LaSallian education. Anytime there's an opportunity, he's teaching us about the LaSallian mission and spirit. He is always keeping his eye on the legacy of the brothers. Only look to the construction work about to take place in the plaza this summer. He's assuring that there will be visible markers of the mission around the plaza for generations to come. Larry is very focused on what is good for the students. This person said, "It warms my heart to see him with students, especially students who struggle. Students will say, 'He never stopped believing in me. He cares for me.' He makes sure students are known and that they are seen. As president, his focus is more now on the adults. Presidents can be distant, but not Larry. He humanizes the role. He walks around and talks with teachers constantly. He listens, he listens, he listens. He is a remarkable human being. He knows everyone so well. There is something special about this place, St. Mary's. There is an aura, and much of it comes from him. His vision, planning, and delivery are incredible. Seems like everything we do at St. Mary's, Larry has had a hand in developing. LaSallian Days, Enrichment Week, the inclusive community efforts, the admissions program, these core principles. I can't think of anyone who has a greater commitment to this school, the LaSallian mission, and the brothers. He is the most incredible person I know, and I'm a better person because of Larry." End of quotes. Thank you, Larry. I had a lot more, but I had to come down for the sake of time. Now I'd like to offer some of my own personal comments. For the sake of time, I'm not going to repeat what your colleagues have said, but I want to share from my perspective from the district as the director of the Office of Education, and now as a board member. I want to begin by stating that, Larry, during your entire career, and certainly as president, you have been dedicated to forming an inclusive community of students and serving those on the margins. Larry continues to be very attentive to assure that scholarship funds and programs are available to assist students most in need. This includes the effort to develop a summer school and tutoring program for middle school students who are underserved, which we hope will take place next summer. This past year, he has been developing a 5-year strategic plan which has as its focus the Lasallian Catholic mission. When drifting from the mission is a real threat to the brothers and others, Larry is deeply committed to assuring the Lasallian mission becomes the backbone of St. Mary's for years to come. One of the significant elements in the strategic plan is the insistence that prayer and Lasallian spirituality become immersed into the life of the school. Larry's commitment to prayer and spirituality is reflected in his loyalty to the daily prayer and spiritual life of the brothers. Brothers take a vow of association, which means they are committed and attentive to not only their local community, but their association with others beyond their local situation. Because Larry developed incredible student activities and admissions programs, I often guided people to Larry for advice. He was always quick to serve as guide and mentor for many across the district. For several years, Larry and Brother John Montgomery volunteered to lead the district's student leadership program. It was 3 or 4 days with sophomores and 3 or 4 days with juniors from every school across the district. As a leader of this program, Larry traveled to each school to interview the participants. And I asked Larry, I said, "Are you sure you're okay doing this?" He says, "Well, I take my admissions folders with me, and I do it. I work on admissions at night." But he did this for several years. He traveled around the district. And many of you know, as you already heard, it was Larry who created and introduced the 5 core principles of Lasallian education for these student leadership workshops. He did that over 20 years ago. And you need to know, if you know, they're certainly here, they're on the wall right here, but every school in the district has these 5 core principles placed somewhere prominently in their school and even internationally. I saw a video of a school in Kenya, and I saw the 5 core principles hanging on a wall in Kenya. That's the kind of influence you've had, not only in this district, Larry, in this country, but even internationally. So congratulations to you. Many of us today see that under Larry's leadership, along with his fellow administrators, you know who you are, and teachers, and building on the efforts of predecessors, St. Mary's has become, to quote the superintendent of Catholic schools for the Diocese of Oakland, the crown jewel of Catholic high school education in the East Bay. Many recognize that the school's reputation is the direct result of Larry's attentiveness to students, his commitment to the Lasallian Catholic mission, the clarity of his vision, and the expression of his Lasallian vocation. Congratulations, Larry. We thank the St. Mary's Brothers community for initiating this honor. On behalf of the thousands of students and alumni, brothers and Lasallian colleagues from St. Mary's and beyond, we thank you now as Brother Larry. We know you have given your all. We respect and honor you, Larry. We love you as a teacher, brother, and friend. Thanks, Larry.
So, international, huh? Well, I want you to know that you are not the only one that has international experience. I once ate with your sister the International House of Pancakes. And speaking of your sisters, I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce everybody, if you haven't already met them, to Larry's brother Norman, his sister Kathy, his sister Marion, his grandnieces, Isabella and Rebecca. And Michelle, I'm saving you for last. Michelle is his niece, who now is principal of St. Elizabeth Grammar School, elementary school in the Fruitvale section of Oakland. And under her, education must be in the blood, I guess. Did you hear that, Norma? But she's principal, and because of that, how significantly did those reading scores go up under her administration and teaching? I'm calling you because it's important. Oh, I'll give you my scientific, they went up a lot, okay? There you go. They went up a lot. So it's wonderful to have you all here. And his high school pal, Scott. And if Larry and Scott got up here, I'm sure they could tell all kinds of stories, but sorry, Scott, not today. Lawrence, could you please come up here? Your comments are next. I want to bring you up. Well, you really are. I'm not making this stuff up. It says so right here. Now, what you all need to know, usually every week Larry and I will go up. You might want to say something. Oh, I will. I'll let you get a word in. Bless you, Mary. Larry and I get together every week, and every week we go out to a very elegant dinner, as Brother Jonathan can tell you. We usually go dine at Chipotle and top it off with a stop at Yogurt Park on Durant. But I guess this will have to do. Anyway, the man of the hour, Brother Lawrence Puck.
One of the things that I made a pact with myself was that I would never follow Tom Brady after he spoke. Just can't do it. Just can't do it. But I'm going to try this time, Tom. I think of my first times at St. Mary's and how wonderful the school and the brothers were. As my family knows, I decided I was going to go to a Catholic college that didn't give me financial aid, and I had to figure out how to pay for it. And I was committed to doing that. And so I came to St. Mary's and thought, and it started because I had to write a paper about adolescence, observing adolescence for a college paper. And that's what started it. And I had spoken to Tom and Brother Chris Basson at the time and others, and is there anything I can do for some money? And the room you're sitting in? Yes. Oh, okay, you can clean it. Back then we had 2 janitors. That was it. And so every day I'd come and sweep the fries off the floor and clean the Shea Center. Then we had a bingo program, and I set up every Sunday for bingo. And I did all of these things to pay for college. And I'm always very grateful because Tom and Brother Chris and Brother Michael, how's that? Brother Michael Collins, all helped to allow me to be able to go to college. So I've always been very grateful for that because it was important for me to go to USF at the time. After that, I became, which I loved, Al Isola's permanent substitute, and he was gone a lot. So I was able to learn how to teach and learn how to do things and stuff because the lesson plan was have them study. So it was an opportunity to be creative, and the brothers always supported it. And Tom always supported it. But one of the great moments with Tom that he did was he pulled me in his office and said, there's something I think you should start looking at. And he had 2 books on the life of John Baptist de La Salle and the Meditations of the Time of Retreat. And he said, here, I'd like for you to read these. And I'm like, really? You know, and he goes, and clock in, because I'll pay you to read them. And I was always grateful because it then opened my eyes to this is what we're supposed to be doing. And it got to my heart. As I told you all earlier, we were a family raised in poverty. And what LaSalle wrote about children in poverty and the world they're in and the families and everything just hit me because we went through it. I went through it. My family went through it. And it still guides me. And so I really appreciate Tom for those beginnings. I thank you again to all the brothers who over my years have done it. All the people sitting in this room who have done amazing things with me in this work, because we don't do it alone. It's coming together and working at it. We don't do it alone. One final thing is when Gery mentioned to me recently about these LaSalle core principles, I called my buddy John, and I said, do you realize that this happened? And John was like, really? And we both were not quite sure that it happened. And then it came up with why. Why did we choose these 5? Why did I end up choosing? I had 20, and I thought, which 5 will work in high school? So I chose the 5. And then the bottom line is why the number 5? I wish I could tell you there was something so profound and so deep and meaningful, but it was the fact that John and I needed 5 groups. So that's where the student activities world comes in, is we needed that, and that's where that, so to see them grow and change and do all that with the intention of we needed to break all of our students into 5 groups. So all of this, I'm very grateful to everyone in this room, and thank you so much. And for everybody who has touched my heart and my life in this work that I've been doing for 43 years. That's including cleaning the floors of the Shea Center. So thank you, everyone, very much.
Right. Yes, right now, there's a little activity that our TV viewing audience won't be able to see, so I'm talking to you right out there, Norma and Phil. So now's the time you need to go to the bathroom, go to the kitchen. Right now, brother Lawrence is going to go over and cut his cake.
I'm going to take my 2.
You take whomever you like.
Lauren?
Just follow him over wherever he walks. That's where the cake is. Where's the cake?
These are,
Yeah, my Sammy. Yeah, my Sammy. I'll teach you.
we love her. Where's the cake?
Audrey knows everything. Ask her. There she is. Audrey's standing by the cake. It's just like a wedding. I wonder if he got a blender or a Cuisinart or something. Just to let you know that Brother Daniel, who's doing a wonderful job with all the technology and camera work, is now I'm not done yet, Kathy, is directing the lens over to the cake. It's almost like a golf match. He's lifting the knife. You can feel it going into the cake. Oh, for those of you who can't see. You're all done? Oh, big round of applause. The cake has been cut. And now, for the last presenter, I suppose, of the evening, a man who has more effervescence and bubbles than a glass of champagne, and who came all the way from Los Angeles, former colleague, friend, a great principal. He told me he was. Brother John Montgomery, come on up and give the toast.
Where's Larry? So I entered the scene 37 years ago when I was assigned to St. Mary's College High School in 1986. Larry was working here in the Shea Center. He was also doing yearbook down the very bottom of St. Joseph's Hall. Larry then became the activities director, and during my time I was teaching full-time, was the admissions director, moderator of a class, and then Tom Brady one year said, you know, we're a little short on the budget. We need people to take on some additional roles. And several faculty were asked to take on a different class period. I said, Tom, is there something you can give me besides teaching a 6th class on top of everything else? He says, well, we need some help here in the cafeteria. I said, oh, with Larry? He said, no, during the day. I said, what's that? I very happily wore my robe every day. In the snack bar, which is now a little bit larger, I cooked fries. I cooked fries for the full year with Ruth and others who may remember, and it was a great experience. It brought me in contact with students in a way outside the classroom and with poor students. I knew who couldn't afford lunch. And Larry and I began to work that out, because when kids can't afford lunch, there's problems. And that is where it really heightened my sensitivity, because I did not come from a poor family. And Larry knew that way better than I did. And at that same time, there was a lot of research taking place in the brothers about, because there were starting to be fewer brothers. And there was quite a bit of research done by some very bright men, Brother Luc Somme, Brother Michel Sauvage, Brother Gerard Rumry, more recently, Brother George Van Grieken, an affiliate member of Greg Copra, who were doing research about our roots. And that's about the same time Gary Short was asking Larry and I to lead these student leadership workshops. Now, Larry really was the brains behind it. And Larry's 100% correct how we came up with the 5 groups. Now, I had done the research from these scholarly brothers about the principles, but Larry really had nailed it. And to this day, I instruct the students in my school, and I think we share this with others, and it's fairly easy to remember. But the intrinsic value of Lasallian Catholic education really comes down to relationships. And that is what Larry has always mastered. But in terms of the core principles, I think we did a good job. Number 1, and they're in no particular order, but this is my order. 1, faith in the presence of God. God comes first. 2, inclusive community. We're much stronger together than we are divided. Number 3, ABCs, 1, 2, 3, quality education. 4, service for the poor and promotion of social justice. And number 5, respect for all persons with an open hand, not a clenched fist. If we could live by these things which Larry helped distill, our society would be much better. John Baptist de La Salle, in his 9th meditation, said the following. I wanted to share that for our toast. St. La Salle wrote, "The zeal that ought to inspire you is that God who has called you destined you for this work." Larry, it is not an accident that we're here today. It is God's providence. It is God's design. For many years, I know Larry did not get much of a salary. And his vocation was never rooted in money or prestige or a title. Larry is a true servant and really a true brother. Not a robe, but the heart. It was always a joy to be around him. He knows what it's like to serve. Before the term servant leader was there, he was there. And so if you have a little glass of water or something before we have our cake or wine or beer, let's think about this. We raise our glass. May the God who called you to this wonderful Lasallian school continue to provide you with the inspiration and zeal to lead others to Christ, a fraternal heart for charity, and a continued bond of friendship to enjoy the relationships which are at the heart of our Lasallian mission. May God bless you today and all days as we live Jesus in our hearts forever. God bless you, Larry. Cheers. And I think we're now going to have some cake and things.
Thank you very much, John. Brother Thomas Jones, will you please come up here? Well, you said you wanted to. Brother Thomas, with his golden voice, if brothers will please stand. AFSCs, I guess, would they stand? Yeah, AFSCs, please stand. And now, Brother Thomas Jones will lead us in the brother's song, Honneur à toi.
Honneur à toi, Gloria de la Salle, apôtre des enfants et gardien de la foi, vainqueur de l'ignorance, à l'homme si fatal. Honneur à toi, à toi qui laissez nous, comme nous applaudissent et chantons triomphants. Parlez parmi du ciel, pour exalter ta gloire. Ici nos voix s'unissent avec transport au cantique éternel. Honneur à toi, Gloria de la Salle, apôtre des enfants et gardien de la foi, vainqueur de l'ignorance, l'alliance si fatale. Honneur à toi, honneur à toi.
Brothers, you can be seated, and I want to just say on behalf of Lawrence, Brother Lawrence, his family, the brothers, and all assembled here, boy, it was wonderful of you to come. It's a visual, it's a visual, and certainly for you audio learners, we heard it too. Don't you love that education talk? Is that beautiful? Michelle, write this down. You might want to remember. Thank you all so much for coming. Please stay and feel free to visit, but God bless you all and drive safely on the way home. Good night, everybody. All right, Azure D has an announcement. Azure D says, tell him not to go, there's cake. Is that what you want me to tell him? Get your cake. It's free. Okay, everybody.